Welcome to another episode of the Victory Podcast, driven by Audi. I'm your host, Keely Eure, joined by my co-host and former USC quarterback, Cody Kessler. Cody, we got a fun episode today. And of course, we always joke about it, but once we hit the stop recording button whenever we're in the studio, news always breaks, which is what happened last week. Reggie Bush, out of all people, gets his Heisman back. So we've got to talk about that. I'm curious to get your thoughts on that topic, as well as the NFL draft. 7 Trojans were drafted. So we're going to break it down, talk about the fit for each Trojan, but a fun one, like I said today.
Yeah, no, I'm excited for this episode. Should be a little bit shorter episode, knock on wood,
you
hopefully.
You always curse us with
I know
this.
We don't jinx ourselves, but yeah, the first topic is going to be a lot of fun to talk about, and I'm glad you brought that up because that literally happens every time we do
Victory
something here
Podcast
at the Victory Podcast, and this was no exception, but huge news, Reggie Bush getting his Heisman back, but I think I was driving home where I had just gotten home after we finished recording last week, and the first thing I see when I open my phone is Reggie Bush gets his Heisman back. And I said, that would have been great to
Nice
talk
to
about.
talk
We kind
about.
of could have broke the news a little bit or had a quick update episode. But nonetheless, get to talk about it today. And then Trojans in the draft. 7 guys drafted. Unbelievable. We had a couple undrafted guys, too, that signed with some teams and still have their opportunity. So we'll talk about them as well. And then get to our favorite part of the episode, the questions. So again, knock on wood. Hopefully it's a quicker episode, but a lot of information, a lot of stuff to talk about.
You always jinx us with that one,
I
but
know.
we were quicker on the game.
We have been better.
The game recap, spring game recap, was shorter than our spring game preview. So I don't know what that means about us, but
Well, the spring game preview, we had been gone for 2 months.
That's
so
true.
we had a lot to catch up
That's
and a lot
true.
to talk about. So we had to make up for all the missed time, right? We had to put out a long episode. But again, 2 topics here. Who knows? We'll probably be here for another 3 hours anyways.
don't
but
jinx us.
hey,
like
we
that.
love USC football. I could sit here and talk all day.
We do, and we love podcasting.
Yeah.
And before we get into the main part of the episode, or the meat and potatoes, as I
There
should
you
say,
go.
just a couple of reminders. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to go above and beyond, leave a review on wherever you get your podcasting app. Helps grow the show. We greatly appreciate everyone who's done it so far. And if you ever want to get your voice heard, be sure to look at our socials, either Twitter or Instagram. We're VictoryPodUSC. You can look for a tweet before each episode where we ask for questions, or a question box on Instagram where you can ask whatever your heart desires, especially as we head into the main part of the offseason, Cody, where we need some questions to help keep us going, because we complain about news, but sometimes that keeps our episodes going. So we love getting questions from you guys.
Yeah, and I like I love the football questions. Obviously, that's what this podcast is about, but I love, obviously, Sam's one of them. But we get random questions, and there's some good ones this week, too, about the NFL draft. And don't be afraid to ask behind-the-scenes stuff as well. Obviously, I was fortunate enough to play here at USC, then went to the NFL, did the NFL draft and combine, all that other stuff in the offseason, and then player-ran practices, stuff they're doing at the college level. So you can ask anything and everything you want to know. It won't offend us. I promise it can be as straightforward as you want to be. I can't promise they're all going to make the episode sometimes because we get some funny ones. But yeah, we love the questions. And again, that's probably my favorite part of the whole episode.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, and then one more reminder, Cody, before we move on to the meat and potatoes.
Yeah, and if you saw last week's episode, you already heard this, and we put it out on Twitter. But I just want to give one more reminder. This weekend on Saturday, May 4th, is Max's March to NCTE. For those of you who don't know, Max Turk was an amazing Trojan here that played offensive line who passed away back in 2020, and towards the end of his life, he dealt with CTE-related issues and concussion-related issues. But I just wanted to go over that one more time. We can post the link again for this episode, or you can go back and watch last episode and go to Twitter. We have the link there as well. And if you can't make the march, again, that'll be May 4th, which is this Saturday in Trabuco Canyon. All the details are going to be on the link that we post. You can also donate to the Concussion Legacy Foundation, which does a great job of helping people better understand CTE and helping families and people that are affected by CTE. So I just wanted to bring that up one more time. We're also doing a pizza party after the march. It should be a lot of fun. Again, obviously, we all miss Max very much, but his parents reiterated to me, Val and Greg Turk, this wants to be a celebration of Max's life and also to raise some money and raise awareness as well about CTE.
And we'll be sure to put the links up on Twitter and Instagram again, so you guys can find that easily. But thank you again for bringing that up, Cody, because I know it's near and dear to your heart. So definitely want to make sure the Victory Podcast supports as well. Alrighty, let's go into the heart of the show, the meat and potatoes, as I usually say. Reggie Bush gets his Heisman back. On Wednesday of last week, the Heisman Trust announced that they were going to return the Heisman, reinstate his Heisman status. They said it was due to the enormous changes in the college football landscape. So rightfully so, Reggie Bush gets his Heisman back. USC becomes the school with the most Heisman Trophy winners at 8. I know that's something you and I have kind of always acknowledged, Cody. We talked about it when Caleb Williams won his Heisman, but exciting news for USC and USC fans on Wednesday.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that too, because it's officially USC has the most Heisman Trophy winners, but we have always recognized that here at the Victory Pod. I'm sure a lot of Trojan fans have as well. I mean, you can't take away
He won it.
what he did on the field, right?
Yeah.
He's the greatest college running back of all time. And I know there's going to be some arguments elsewhere, but of my era growing up, everyone looked up to Reggie Bush. He was the greatest college football player in the history of college. Well, a big reason why I wanted to come to USC as well. That Trojan team, got to watch them live at the Coliseum. But yeah, my first note is it's about time, in all caps. And it felt like it was going to happen. You just kind of waited for it to happen. And there's been a lot of guys outside of USC advocating as well. Johnny Manziel was talking about, hey, I'm going to remove myself from the Heisman until he gets it back because of what's happening right now. And obviously that's what the Heisman Trust said, or the committee, was because of how how college football has changed with the NIL and all of those things. It only felt right. But, it's crazy. He won it back in 2005. We're now 2024. It's been almost 20 years for that to happen. But it was cool. And I love what Reggie said as well in a recent interview. I think it was the Pat McAfee show. He said, I always felt that it was going to happen, that I was going to get my Heisman back. I just didn't know when. But my biggest exciting thing about all this is now that we're going to see it in Heritage Hall, right? The Heisman Trophy is going to be back.
Wild.
There's going to be 8 of them. I know. I can't wait to go look at it. I point like we're below Heritage, actually. It's right above us. But I can't wait for the fall. Can you imagine? I get the chills talking about it too. Not only Reggie being back in the Coliseum or being around the team, but him leading the Trojans out of the tunnel for a big-time Big Ten matchup in the Coliseum, sold-out crowd. I mean, it's just going to be unbelievable. But nonetheless, very excited for Reggie and USC football. Like I said, it's about dang time.
And your first USC game was the Fresno State.
Very first.
That's wild.
It was me, one of my buddies, Alfonso, and then my dad and his dad brought us down. My buddy Bo as well, and all 3 of us came down. And Alfonso's dad bought us a 5. I still have it, and like an authentic, the old school throwback 5 jersey.
Wow.
And it was awesome. And yeah, we came down. We were sitting there. It was the game that they played Fresno State, and he went for 500 plus all-purpose yards. And
Absurd.
I remember the Coliseum rocking and seeing that. And I remember sitting there thinking, yeah, I'd like to come here someday. I would like to follow in the footsteps like a guy like Reggie Bush. But a little fun fact too, I'm actually going to see Reggie on Thursday. Today's Tuesday.
Yeah.
We're recording this. I'm going to see Reggie on Thursday. They're coming out with a really cool Travis Matthew Reggie Bush collaboration. They're going to have a collection, which is inspired by Reggie Bush. Those of you who don't know, Travis Matthew is a golf company. They do golf apparel. So they reached out to me, and I've done some work with them in the past, but they reached out and said, hey, you want to come to the exclusive launch party on Thursday?
The most Cody combination ever.
It's perfect.
Golf and Reggie Bush.
Yeah, golf, USC football, Reggie Bush. So
yes.
That'll be a lot of fun, but it'll be cool to see Reggie as well. I'm obviously going to bring this up a little bit and talk to him about it. But which is crazy, too, I was just thinking about is, did they know this was going to happen, or are they just doing the collab?
Good timing.
Because it'd been a while, and Reggie talked about it too. They've already been promoting it, talking about it's been a long time coming doing this collaboration. Reggie, if you don't follow his Instagram, does a ton of golf stuff now, big, and as most of us retired athletes are. We love the game of golf, but it's awesome. And then obviously he gets his Heisman back, and now they're doing the Travis Matthew and Reggie Bush collection. So it's going to be really cool, but nonetheless, so excited for Reggie and USC football. I'm sure all of his teammates and coaches and stuff back then reached out to him and are very excited for him as well.
This is really dumb, but I'm excited to see if he's in the Heisman House commercials.
I've already seen. I'm obviously been on Twitter, but some of the people putting ideas of what they should do.
Ideas?
Someone put something. I don't want to take credit. It was just a random Twitter site, but they said, "How funny would it be if Reggie showed up with like a map and was like, sorry guys, I got lost,' or kind of like was lost and then finally made it." And
that's amazing.
I've been lost for 20 years, like direction wise, and then they kind of welcomed him back, and Matt was there and stuff. And Carson Palmer and Marcus Allen, just kind of those guys sitting there welcoming him into the house like he has been lost. But no, a lot of cool things they can do. But nonetheless, I think I speak for the entire Trojan family and everyone involved with USC football. We're just so excited for Reggie, and it's awesome that he finally gets his Heisman back.
Yeah, for sure. Alrighty, we got to get into the NFL draft. Before we do, just want to give thanks to Audi. Performance is more exhilarating on a real road. Introducing the Audi Q5 is your SoCal Audi dealers, proud sponsors of the USC Trojans. And at Ralph's, everyone wins when it comes to saving big, because when you order online through the Ralph's app, you get the same great prices, deals, and rewards on pickup or delivery that you do in store. So no matter where you shop, you always save big at Ralph's. Ralph's, fresh for everyone. Fight on.
Fight on.
Alrighty, the NFL draft. I got to say, Detroit showed out. I don't know if you saw how huge their crowd was, but I think it set a record. So
I think it did.
It was really cool to see.
Well, it's cool to see, too, and I was watching some of those talk shows and people talking about the draft, how much the game of football is growing, which sounds crazy because it's one of the, if not the biggest sport in the world, I guess, outside of soccer. It depends on where you live. But it's so cool to continue to see it growing, and it almost feels like the draft is like the excitement that the Super Bowl gets, right? It's so cool, the fans that show out and what it does for the city, and just how well they do promoting it, and you kind of really feel connected to the guys that the teams are drafted, as a fan. So a phenomenal job there, and I think it was just so cool to see all the fans show out, and Caleb running out on the stage screaming and cheering, like that excitement, that feeling that the players, they do a great job of like I said, broadcasting it and showing it. But it's such a cool thing. And yeah, shout out to all the NFL fans everywhere showing up for that and supporting their favorite team. And I think you're right. I think they did set the record for the biggest attendance of an NFL draft in NFL history.
Well, the cool part, too, is that, one, they kind of leaned into the fact that Goodell gets booed.
Yeah.
The fact that Eminem was like, "Are you sure you want to go out there?" in the little intro, but also bringing out the Lions as well. We got to see an Amon-Ra St. Brown sighting, getting everyone hyped up. So it was kind of cool too. You mentioned Caleb. It was like Amon-Ra St. Brown USC sighting, and then the first pick overall USC sighting with Caleb. So it was cool to see that back-to-back USC connection there.
Yeah, and huge shout out to Amon-Ra St. Brown too. Just record-breaking deal, 4 years, $120 million. And I love. Well, before we get into this too, that's a perfect kind of segue. Is fourth round pick, right? Wasn't a top first round pick, wasn't a highly rated guy coming out of USC. We knew,
which was crazy,
what he was capable of and the talent that he had. But, it just shows that, and we hear the stories all the time, but it's cool to see that right before draft, or right before the draft started, was a guy that is a walking example of that, right? Fourth round pick, under the radar, and now he's I think he's the highest paid or one of the highest paid wide receivers in the NFL. And again, he's a USC Trojan, which is cool. But shout out to him. And it was cool seeing Amon-Ra up there, a guy who's doing it now. And then the first pick of the draft, obviously Caleb Williams get to look up there as well. And the cool thing too about the draft is, when we're talking about Detroit, but I love the at-home videos as well, right? Where you see the players sitting with their families and those videos, and they wanted to do that actually for me.
Really?
They ESPN wanted to come down and film in-house, but you know me, I hate the media and all. Not hate the media, but I hate all of that. Well, I'm part of it now too. So. But I didn't like all the attention, and it's nerve-wracking. It's tough. You don't know what's going to happen, but either way, it's cool, whether they're walking on stage or you get to see them at their home with their families. Really cool experience, and again, awesome to Amon-Ra, and shout out to him for that big contract.
For sure. Okay, well, we kind of all knew this was coming, but still so exciting to see it happen. Number 1 pick overall, Caleb Williams goes to the Chicago Bears. Overall thoughts, Cody? I know you just mentioned it, but he came out with so much excitement, and I think anyone who's watched USC, been on the field or near Caleb Williams, was not maybe surprised by that emotion. He shows it all the time, and that's just the competitor he is. But it was really cool just to see, how fired up he was for this moment.
Yeah, and I think, and you just said it, we all knew Caleb was going to or should be the number 1 overall pick. It just was where it was going to be at, right? Because we didn't know for sure if Chicago was going to move on from Justin Fields. We didn't know if the Commanders were going to trade up. The Cliff Kingsbury stories came out, and hometown ties, with Caleb. But as soon as Justin Fields was traded to Pittsburgh back in March, I think everyone knew. And if you heard the phone call between Caleb and Ryan Poles, who's the GM at the Bears, he said, "Hey, we've been waiting all night to tell you this, or a month or whatever to tell you this." And Caleb said, "I've been waiting 5 months for this moment." It's been 5 months, but it was awesome to see. And this is one of those rare occurrences where you have a first overall pick as a quarterback and you go to a good situation, right? Normally when you have the first pick in the draft, it's because you didn't win a lot of games, because you have a struggling franchise, a team that's on a rebuild, if you will. But this pick, remind you from last year, this pick for the Bears was from Carolina. They traded to get this pick to draft Bryce Young. Carolina obviously had the worst record, so they had 2 top 10 picks. The Bears did, and the first one was obviously the first overall pick. But I love this for Caleb, right? It's a very good situation. 2023, a very good defense, right? As a quarterback in the NFL, That's probably most important. How good is the defense? How good are we going to be able to stop people on the other side of the ball? Number 1 rushing defense last year. They were first in the NFL with takeaways, right? That get the momentum off interceptions. First in the NFL with interceptions. They had 22 of them, and then they were in the top half of most of the categories. Then you go to the offensive side of the ball, right? They added some great weapons. Again, very rare for a number 1 overall pick going to a team that is you think is struggling, but that's not the case here with Chicago. They're so close to taking that next step, and it really felt like they're a quarterback away. They add Keenan Allen in the offseason, right? They have DJ Moore, who's one of the better wide receivers in the NFL. They draft Rome Odunze at number 9, another weapon for him. They have DeAndre Swift, who just came over from the Eagles.
Yeah.
And then you also have tight end Cole Kmet, who in my opinion is a top half tight end in the NFL. So it is a very good situation for Caleb to go to, and they really do have a win now roster. And it's just going to come down to how quick can Caleb learn the playbook, get acclimated, and really get things going. But he goes to a great opportunity, and I think that's a great pickup for the Chicago Bears, and I'm excited for Caleb.
Yeah, no, super exciting. And what's funny is we didn't obviously podcast during the whole women's basketball ride, but during that was Pro Day, and Keenan Allen actually came to USC. What do you make of that gesture to show up and watch Caleb do his thing?
Yeah, I saw that, and a little fun story too. I actually trained with Keenan Allen when I was here at USC.
Okay.
I worked with a guy by the name of Steve Calhoun when I was in college, and Keenan is one of the receivers that he works with, and I got to throw to Keenan. Unbelievable player, unbelievable person, one of the craziest catch radius I've ever been around. I mean, you would throw a ball and you felt like you missed, and he would come down with it, but I think that was really cool that he showed up, and obviously the pick hadn't happened yet. We were still a couple months away from the draft, but Fields had been traded, and Keenan Allen probably had been in the front office talking to some of those guys, knowing what was going to happen. But I think it just shows the type of culture that Chicago's building. He came out, he didn't have to do that, right?
Yeah.
He could have spent his day doing something else, but he came out, supported Caleb, wanted to be around him, build some more of that connection. I mean, those quarterback-wide receiver connections are so important, but it also gives Caleb confidence going forward. He knows when I get to Chicago, when I step foot in the facilities, I've already got a guy who's one of the best wide receivers in the NFL that I've already built a little bit of rapport with, who believes in me, who came out to support me. So, yeah, that's a huge confidence boost for Caleb going forward, and I can't wait to see him and Keenan get to work together.
Overall, how do you think that this fit works for Caleb?
Yeah, like I mentioned, it's very rare, again, that you have a first overall pick as a quarterback going to a good situation, right? And this is exactly that. Chicago, like I just mentioned, in 2023 had a very good defense. Offense, they had good players, and Justin Fields did a good job, right? We saw up and downs from Justin Fields. He's a good player. I think he's going to do well in Pittsburgh. I think it's going to help him to sit a little bit too and sit behind Russell Wilson. But overall, it felt like Chicago was just a quarterback away, or consistent quarterback play away from really being a playoff contender to being a NFC championship contender and ultimately being a Super Bowl contender. And obviously I'm a USC fan, and I believe fully in Caleb Williams, and I think they finally got their guy, and I think Caleb is going to take that team to that next level. But again, it's going to be some adjustment periods. It may not happen right away. It may not happen in year one. It may take a year or two, but the work ethic that Caleb has and the supporting cast around him, I really see Chicago taking that next step and being a legit contender in the NFC.
This pick was also historic in USC terms. USC now has 6 number 1 overall picks, which is the record. And Lincoln Riley now holds the record for most quarterbacks coached who have been selected at number 1 overall. So some USC accolades as well. So it was a historic day overall for USC.
Yeah, and not only the number 1 picks, but also 3 Heisman Trophy winners as those number 1 picks with Caleb Williams, Baker Mayfield, and Kyler Murray. So if I'm a quarterback and I have a kid, or if I'm just a parent and I have a kid who wants to play quarterback or wants to take it to the next level, I know where I'm sending them. So
yeah,
it's awesome. But yeah, a huge shout out to Caleb and all the past number 1 overall picks. And it's just, and hey, that's 2. We're 30 minutes into this episode. We've already got the most Heisman trophies and we got the most number 1 overall picks. So
talk about the last.
I'm not out here recruiting. I'm just saying,
Sure.
If you know where you want to go, where you should go, come be a Trojan.
You're not recruiting, but you're recruiting.
Yeah, I'm recruiting. I'm always recruiting. I'm a Trojan at heart. I'm always recruiting.
You never stop.
Yeah.
But also that span of 48 hours for USC, the Reggie Bush, Amon-Ra, and Caleb Williams, it was just incredible news for that time period. It was pretty crazy.
Yeah, this kind of goes back to the overall picture. It's just what an exciting time for USC football, right?
Yeah.
Jen Cohen's here, and she's already made a huge impact. We're going to the Big Ten. Just so many things are happening. The NIL event was last night for the House of Victory.
Trojan Legends.
It's just so many exciting things around USC football, and then obviously draft Amon-Ra. And it's not just Amon-Ra. There's other players
of course,
from USC football that throughout the years and even going farther back have signed these big-time contracts who you hear in their interviews say, hey, I was prepared well, I was developed well at USC, and that's what got me ready for the NFL, and it's just such a cool story. And we have so many draft picks as well, not only number 1 overall picks or first round, just so many players, and Lincoln Riley's continuing that standard, but so many players that have developed well and continue to make an impact at the NFL that come from USC. So yeah, what better time to be a Trojan than now, and getting ready for a huge season this year as well.
Yeah. Now, these next 6 Trojans I'm excited to talk about because obviously less publicized, so I'm curious your take on how they will fit. The next Trojan who was drafted was Kalen Bullock in the 3rd round. He was the 78th pick, and the Houston Texans picked him up.
Yeah, I think that's a great landing spot for Kalen. I really do. It's a team, again, from last year that was kind of a surprise, right? They got C.J. Stroud. They didn't really know what weapons they were going to have on offense. They go and get Will Anderson Jr. in the 1st round, back-to-back, I think it was also, with Stroud 2 and Will Anderson Jr. 3. But then you have the Offensive Rookie of the Year and C.J. Stroud. You have the Defensive Rookie of the Year and Will Anderson Jr. And now you add Kalen Bullock to that defense that played very well last year, right? And you can't just have Stroud and all these offensive weapons without having a good defense, right? You have to have production on both sides of the football to make it to the playoffs, to make it to the divisional round, right? They ended up losing to the Baltimore Ravens, but a team that felt like they were still rebuilding and a couple of years away made an immediate impact last year. So I think it's going to be awesome for Kalen Bullock. He joins Robert Woods, obviously a Trojan there as well. So that's going to be a lot of fun for them to go against each other at practice. But you look at the depth chart on the back end for the Texans, Kalen has a real opportunity to come in and make an immediate impact, right? If you look at the other safeties, you have Jimmy Ward, who's a vet, an 11-year player. You have Jalen Petrie, who's going into his 3rd year. You have Lonnie Johnson Jr., who's a 6-year player. And then you have MJ Stewart, who's a 7th-year player. So you have a good combination of some veterans on that roster, but also some younger guys. And I don't know if Kalen's going to come in and compete for a starting spot right away, but he's got some great guys that he can learn from, and I think he's still going to make an impact this year, whether it's some 3rd down action or put him in there with his bigger size on some man-to-man on some tight ends, when they go dime or they go nickel. So I'm excited to see how the Texans use him, but either way, I think this is a great landing spot for Kalen. I can't wait to see the production that he can have for the Texans.
That's kind of ideal in the sense that he doesn't have the pressure of coming in and having to produce immediately. He can kind of learn from older vets and then start to slowly get his playing time.
Yeah, I think that's, obviously there's rookies that are going to come in. And again, they drafted Will Anderson Jr. last year very high in the draft. I think it was 3rd overall, and he goes on to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. So you do have guys that are going to make an immediate impact. I'm not saying Kalen can't do that. I do think still he's going to put on a little bit more size to get that NFL size to him, that NFL-type body. But I really feel like he has all the tools, the height, the speed, the way he covers so well on the back end to be a great player in the NFL. I just think it's going to take a little bit of time, and like you said, developing from or learning from some of these older guys is going to do great things for him, and it's going to allow him to not feel that pressure of having to perform right away, but also allow him to be comfortable, and when the time comes or when it's time to make some of the plays in games where he has his opportunities, he can make the most of them and not feel that pressure.
Alrighty, well, the next Trojan drafted was Marshon Lloyd. In the 3rd round, he was pick 88, so just 10 picks after Kalen, and he went to the Green Bay Packers.
This is probably my favorite landing spot for a Trojan in this draft. I really do. The Green Bay Packers, obviously a very young core on that football team on both sides of the ball. I think they were the youngest team in the NFL last year, average age. They have a lot of very good players that are stepping up at a young age. This is going to allow Marshon Lloyd to come in there. And it's tough sometimes in the NFL when you're the young guy, right? When you come in and there's a lot of veterans and older guys in the room. It's great to learn from them, but it's tough kind of going from the college days straight into players who have full families, right? And they've got 4 or 5 kids and they've been in the league for 10 years. So I say that to say that Green Bay is probably the most young, exciting team in the NFL. They just lost Aaron Jones, right, at the running back spot. So that's wide open. They do add Josh Jacobs to that roster. They also have A.J. Dillon there. So that's a 6th-year and a 5th-year player. So not quite older vets yet, but still kind of on the cusp of being the younger guys. But I love Matt LaFleur's offense. I love the way that he does a great job of using the running back out of the backfield, right? He's not just in the run game. He's also, and we saw Aaron Jones, right? He's such a great player. The versatility that he has, I really feel that's Marshon Lloyd's strength.
Yeah.
We saw him last year a couple plays, and he can run downhill. He can be physical for short yardage. He can also get in the open field and take one, and against Cal, take it the distance and bust off a 50, 60-yard run. But he's also very good at pass catching out of the backfield, and he can block well too. Yeah. So really a complete running back, and that fits so well in LaFleur's offense, and I can't wait to see the impact he has. Now, obviously, there's two guys ahead of him that he's going to have to compete with, but I really believe that Marshon Lloyd is going to be an immediate impact player, and we're going to see him a lot, especially on third down, third and medium, where he gets those man-to-man plays where he can run a wheel down the sideline or an angle route, and they can use him out of the backfield more.
The next Trojan drafted was Jarrett Kingston in the 6th round. He was picked 215, and he went to the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, this is a great pickup for the 49ers. Obviously very excited for Jarrett. And what a great landing spot as an offensive lineman, right? You go to a team that loves to run the football in Kyle Shanahan's offense. They love the play action. You have probably the best running back in the NFL right now in Christian McCaffrey. So that makes your job as a lineman a little bit easier. But when you get to these later round picks, and obviously it's like we just talked about, Amon-Ra being a 4th-round pick and now the highest-paid wide receiver. You also have Tom Brady, who was a 6th-round pick. The quarterback right now for the 49ers, Brock Purdy, was Mr. Irrelevant. So there's definitely some outliers, and there's definitely later-round pick guys that play as rookies or make an immediate impact. But when you get to these later rounds, this is where it really gets easier to be a developmental player, right? Where you can sit a little bit, where you can learn from the older guys, from the vets on the team, when you don't have that pressure of playing right away. And it even starts maybe as soon as the 3rd and 4th round, but really the 6th and 7th round allows you to have that leeway. But I love this pickup for the 49ers. I love this landing spot for Jarrett Kingston. He gets to go learn from left tackle Trent Williams, who's a 15-year NFL vet, who's probably the best lineman in the NFL, or one of the best linemen in the NFL. And then you have their center, Jake Brindle, an 8-year vet, guy who's making all the calls up front. So Jarrett Kingston's in great hands with Kyle Shanahan, with the players they have on that team, and a team that has been to the Super Bowl 2 of the last 5 years. So they're a team that's been used to winning, and a team that can get it done, that's so close to getting that Super Bowl. So I'm excited for Kingston, and I hope he has a great career there.
Next up, again, 10 picks later in the 7th round, pick 225 was Brendan Rice, who's staying home. He's going to the LA Chargers.
Yeah, this is probably the biggest surprise for me in the draft.
Really?
Just for how far Brendan Rice fell.
Okay.
Right? Going in the 7th round, I thought he was going to be maybe a 4th round, 5th round at the latest pick, just from, the production he had here at USC, right, last year. And I know, a big knock on him, or one of the critiques on him, was he's got to get a little bit better route running, a little stiff, be a little bit more smooth in transition. And we've talked about here on the Victory Podcast, if you can't win in man-to-man press coverage in the NFL, you're not going to play, right? You have to be able to do that. So, yes, he can clean up some of his route running, but you look at the production last year at USC, right? 45 receptions, 791 yards, 12 touchdowns. He is a gamer, right? He does a great job of getting open. He can beat you over the top. He can be physical at the point of attack. And something that Lincoln Riley talked about was consistency, right? So that's something he can still, improve on and be consistent day in and day out. And you only get, so many opportunities in the NFL, even in practice, right? So he's got to be able to go in there and make an immediate impact. I know he performed well, too, in Mobile, Alabama at the Senior Bowl. So that's just why I was surprised a little bit that he fell that far. But again, a great opportunity for him, right? This is kind of up there with Marshon Lloyd. This is a great fit for Brendan Rice, and he has an opportunity to play early, even as a 7th round pick, right? We just talked about those later round guys are players who develop. You don't expect them to play right away. But if you look at the roster right now for the Chargers, right, they just got rid of Keenan Allen, went to Chicago. You have a good quarterback in Justin Herbert, who's very accurate with the football. You're just waiting for him to kind of take that next step and get the players around him. But if you look at the wide receiver position, there's really no one there that's a proven wide receiver one yet, right? You have Quentin Johnson, who was their 1st-round pick from a year ago, struggled as a rookie, right? Then you go Joshua Palmer, probably the most, veteran player they have on their roster. Good player, right? He made some plays last year, but he's never been a wide receiver one, so we'll see how he does in that position. They drafted Ladd McConkey from Georgia with their 2nd-round pick. They also drafted a couple other guys in the 7th round at wide receiver. That is just a position group. Cornelius Johnson was drafted in the 7th round along with Brendan Rice, but that's just a position group right now for the Chargers that's wide open, right? So it really is a good fit for Brendan, and also a comfortable fit for him, right? He's staying home, or not home, I guess, but he's staying here in LA, a place that he's been the last couple of years. So I'm excited for him, but what a great opportunity ahead. And also use that being drafted in the 7th round, use that as motivation, right? And I know he will, but that's something I'm sure if you talk to him, he felt like he was a higher end pick, right? He should have been picked a little bit higher than he was, but use that as motivation going forward. Go in there and make an immediate impact. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Brendan on the field this year if he can keep up that consistency and clean up his route running a little bit.
And to your point, he tweeted, "All I needed was a shot." So I think he's already taking that as motivation.
Yeah, I mean, you just got to make the most of those opportunities. So I'm excited to watch Rice.
For sure. Already the 6th Trojan drafted was Solomon Byrd in the 7th round, pick 238, joining fellow Trojan Kalen Bullock at the Houston Texans.
Yeah, I'm very excited for Solomon Byrd. And obviously that's a comfort feeling joining Kalen Bullock, someone that you played with on the defensive side of the ball, getting to rookie mini camp, getting acclimated to the Texans facilities, having a guy that you already know in the building is going to be great for both Byrd and Bullock. But I think Byrd has the opportunity to be a very good NFL player. He's got to continue to develop. But last year, he was a big time player for this Trojan defense. And at one point, the coaching staff talked about him being the MVP of our defense. And here at the Victory Podcast, obviously, we were very high on him. We agreed with that, right? He had a great game against Arizona State, a couple sacks, also added a sack fumble there, I think, to close the game out as well. So it was a lot of fun to watch him play last year and see him develop. I'm excited for him at the next level, and this is another guy, right? All you need is a shot. All you need is an opportunity. He joins a very good young football team, a defensive unit that has some good players, both young and old, that he can learn from, right? They have Defensive Rookie of the Year that we already talked about, Will Anderson Jr. You also have Daniil Hunter, who's a 8th-year NFL vet. And then you have Derek Barnett, who came from the Eagles, also an 8-year NFL vet. So he's got some good guys that he can learn from. Again, doesn't have that pressure to have to perform right away, but that's sometimes the best place to be, right? Especially as a defensive player, if you're young, you're hungry, you're a little bit under the radar, you can go out there and make some plays in mini camp and then going into OTAs and fall camp and then really make a name for yourself. But either way, huge congratulations to Solomon Byrd and his family, and I can't wait to watch him at the next level.
Already the final Trojan drafted, and I'm so excited and happy for this particular Trojan. Taj Washington, you went in the 7th round, picked 241 to the Miami Dolphins. I think all the fellow Trojans on Twitter were also excited as well. Just excited for a very good guy to get a shot.
Yeah, this is my biggest steal of the entire draft. Now, obviously that's
a little biased.
I'm kidding, but I'm a little biased on Taj. But again, I think it is a big steal, right, for the draft. And again, it's one of those players that you get attached to a little bit as you watch them play, that does things the right way, that you put the Travis Dye in those categories. Someone that was one of my favorite Trojans to watch on Saturdays. I love the way that Lincoln Riley and this staff talked about him, right? A very unselfish player.
Yeah.
Did whatever it takes. I don't care if you want me at slot, outside, covering kickoffs, covering punt, whatever you want me to do. I want to be on the field and I want to make plays. But he's also a guy that wasn't just a every now and then guy that's going to go out and make a play. He was our leading receiver last year production-wise, right? He's a very good player. Now, again, I know there's going to be some knocks on him about being a little bit undersized, not the prototypical size for a wide receiver in the NFL, but again, that's another guy that can use that as motivation. If you look at his stats from last year, 59 receptions, he broke the 1,000-yard mark, had 1,062 yards, and also had 8 touchdowns, had a great bowl game as well. Played well with Caleb, played well with Miller. Doesn't matter who's in at quarterback, Taj Washington is going to find ways to get open and make big-time plays. Now, the best part for Taj going to Miami is, again, you go to a wide receiver group that's a little crowded, right? You do have Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, 2 guys that you can really learn from. Then you add some other guys on that roster with Braxton Berrios, River Craycraft, guys that I know. So it's a little bit of a crowded wide receiver room, but again, it's just opportunities. It allows him to go a little bit under the radar, to take some time to develop a little bit, learn from Waddle, learn from Hill, learn how to do things the right way in the NFL. You go to a great offensive-minded coach in Mike McDaniel. You have Tua Tagovailoa as your quarterback, right? So you have all the pieces in place. Miami went to the playoffs last year, so you have a team that can win now, a team that's very hungry, that's continuing to get better. I really feel that Taj, and again, I might be biased, but just watching his film and breaking down his tape and watching him throughout the year, I really feel that Taj is a NFL-type receiver. I think he's going to make a great impact with Miami, and if it's not there, it's going to be somewhere else, right? If that wide receiver room's too crowded, I think he's going to be one of those guys that if he doesn't make the roster, he's going to ball out in the offseason, ball out in preseason. That's going to be the biggest for him, is those preseason games, and someone's going to be lucky to have him on the team. I just hope he sticks with Miami and gets an opportunity there. But if not, I really see a successful career for Taj in the NFL.
Now, can you explain what happens once the draft is over? I feel like it's kind of a feeding frenzy for everyone who's quote-unquote left post-draft.
So if you're I think the first 3 rounds, so if you're a top 3-round pick, and I was a 3rd-round pick, so you traveled to the team immediately, right? So I got drafted, I celebrated with my family and friends and everyone that was at the house, but I didn't really do anything besides pack after that, right?
Wow.
You get to celebrate for a little bit, but then
Reality
you
hits.
get on the phone with someone from the organization and they have you ready to take a flight, right? You either take a red eye or you take the first flight out in the morning. You fly to where you got drafted. You do some press conferences. We did it with the first couple picks that were there with me. So we did a press conference, met with the media, obviously met the coaching staff, and you've already met with them throughout this whole process, but then you talk to them and then you go meet with the equipment, get your helmet, get everything taken care of, pick your jersey number, do all that.
Wow.
And then you fly back. So you're only there for a couple hours, and you fly back and wait until rookie minicamp. I think if you're a 4th round pick or later, some of the later round picks, they don't fly you out. I think you do everything from – now this was when I was getting drafted. They might do that differently now, but I'm pretty sure the later round picks – don't fly out to the facilities, right? You still kind of handle all of that over the phone. And then the next part is if you're not drafted, right? And there's a lot of guys that are undrafted. That's when you start working with your agent. You start calling around to teams. You get calls from teams. Who wants to sign you? You can kind of decide where you want to go, right? So that's why you hear some of these stories about guys. Now, it's obviously a blessing to be drafted, but sometimes guys, when you get to those 7th round picks or those later round picks, it's almost better to be undrafted because you get to pick the situation you're going to, right? You know that you can look at if you get opportunities, right? It's getting drafted is a very great thing. It's a blessing. I'm not saying that in a negative way at all, especially to the guys. And again, Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, and went to the Super Bowl last year with the 49ers. But sometimes for guys that aren't in that scenario, like Brock was, or these better situations, it's almost more advantageous to pick where you're going to go, right? And be an undrafted free agent. But yeah, if you're not drafted, you better get on the phone. You better start talking to these teams, your agent. That's where they kind of go into overdrive for you and start working and trying to get you into a rookie minicamp or get you signed as an undrafted free agent so you can get an opportunity somewhere.
Well, USC had 4 UDFAs. Keon Barrs went to the Titans. Justin Diedich signed with the Rams. Christian Roland-Wallace went to the Chiefs. And Austin Jones went to the Commanders.
Yeah, I'm excited for those guys, right? And again, it goes back to what we just talked about. NFL is all about opportunities, right? And it is about timing, right? You got to be at the right place at the right time, the coaching staff and the situation around you and really being able to excel in the environment you're in. But the biggest part of that is opportunities. When you get, especially those lower round picks, when you get one opportunity or one shot, even in practice or even in one-on-ones, or whether it's even in the film room, right? You get asked a question in the film room, you've got to hit every single time, right? You don't have the leeway of the top round picks or the higher drafted guys to make those mistakes over and over, to have more time to get it fixed. You got to get it right away, right? And that's something for these guys. But 4 great Trojans, right? Keon Barrs was only here for a year, but I'm very excited to see what he can do at Tennessee. Justin Diedich, one of my favorite Trojans, a 2-time captain, went from guard to center, a guy that can do it all up front. Christian Roland-Wallace, another transfer guy who I think really started to excel towards the end of the year last year at the cornerback position, a bigger body corner too. So I'm excited to see him with the Chiefs. And then Austin Jones, another transfer guy who was here for a couple years, who was a great 1-2 punch with Travis Dye and a great 1-2 punch with Marshon Lloyd. So 4 guys that I'm excited to follow their NFL journey, and hopefully they can go capitalize at rookie minicamp in a couple weeks and then get an opportunity in the fall and ultimately make the roster. For
sure. Alrighty, Cody, any final thoughts about the NFL draft overall?
No, it's crazy. It's, obviously gives you flashbacks that been there and done that, and it's just crazy. But I'm so excited for all the Trojans. It's a great feeling to have all that hard work pay off, to put all the blood, sweat, and tears over the years. And this isn't just from college. This goes back to those morning workouts, as a kid with your dad or your mom or whoever it may be, or whoever's helping you get to that next level. And then you go to high school, to college, and obviously the NFL. But a lot of lifelong dreams were fulfilled these last couple of days when the draft took place. So I'm so excited for these guys. Embrace it, soak it all in, really celebrate with your family and enjoy these next couple of days before it starts. But once you get to rookie minicamp, you got to lock in and really know your why and why you want to do this and why you want to be successful. It's going to be not only physical or physically challenging, but it's going to be a mental challenge as well in the NFL. But we have a lot of great Trojans who were developed well through Lincoln Riley and his staff. They can go be successful in the NFL. So I'm excited for those guys.
Awesome. What a perfect wrap-up. Well done.
There we go. Now it's time for our questions.
Yes, it's time for questions. Before we get into it, though, just want to give a thanks to Audi. What if there was a portal to the future? Enter the fully electric Audi Q4 e-tron with an advanced touchscreen infotainment system. Audi, the future awaits. And take your health to the next level with Symbiotica. Their premium, easy-to-take supplements fuel your body with key vitamins and minerals to help you reach peak performance on and off the field. Elevate your health today by going to Symbiotica.com and use code FIGHTON for 15% off site-wide.
Fight on.
Alrighty, our first question comes from Louis, who said, what led to Washington and Rice falling in the draft?
It's tough to say exactly or to pinpoint why they fell. Obviously I'm not there behind closed doors if they had, private team visits or in Mobile, Alabama, with those one-on-one meetings they had or at the combine, all those different things that you do leading up, to the draft through this draft process. But I really feel too, and obviously there's times you hit a home run, there's times you hit on guys, but you hear all the time, I really believe that drafting or evaluating, it's a flawed system, right? It's not a home run every single time. You're not going to get the perfect pick. You're not going to get drafted exactly where you maybe should be. You always laugh because you see, the term bust. I hate using that, and especially so early on in a person's career, but you see those redraft boards, right? If you were to redraft someone, and where would they have gone, or would they have, a fourth-round pick would have been a first-round pick. So at the end of the day, no matter how far you fall, doesn't really matter if you're going to go out and perform, right? Now, Amon-Ra St. Brown, really someone that we started this episode talking about talking about the draft, is a perfect example, right? A guy who is a fourth-round pick, now goes on to be one of the highest-paid wide receivers in the NFL. Tom Brady, a sixth-round pick, the greatest quarterback to ever play the game. Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant. I keep bringing these guys up, but it's obviously it pertains to this episode about doesn't matter where you get drafted. It doesn't matter how that whole draft process goes. At the end of the day, if you can play and you can make the most of your opportunities, you're going to have a long career. But to get back to the main question, it's so tough to pinpoint exactly why they would have fallen, especially Brendan Rice for me. I thought that was going to be a guy that was going to be a little bit higher. And I'm so high on Taj Washington, not to discredit him, but I thought Rice, especially who his dad is and preparing him for the next level and what he did here at USC, transferring, learning a new playbook, being able to be successful at both places. I really thought he was going to be a fourth, fifth round guy. But at the end of the day, it's you could ask that question for so many guys. And that's why it's so tough to really pay attention to those pre-draft or the mock draft things. No one really knows. And at the end of the day, it's a flawed system. You don't know who's going to perform well at the next level, because if it wasn't, then you would never see a number one overall pick or a first-round draft pick fail or not be successful. So It's tough to really pinpoint, but either way, again, I'm going to keep saying that this episode. Make the most of your opportunities when they happen, and the lower you are drafted, the less you're going to get of them, but you've got to go out there and perform.
So Rama asked, what was the most surprising thing about the NFL draft as far as USC players? Would you say Brendan Rice?
Yeah, Brendan Rice is probably 1A. 1B for me was Justin Dedich not being drafted. I thought he was going to be a drafted guy because, again, you're a two-time captain here at USC. You played offensive line, you played guard, you played center. You can make that position shift. He was successful last year. He wasn't a guy that got replaced or got benched. He was a multi-year starter, a multi-year captain. So I thought for sure he was going to get drafted somewhere. So that would probably be one of my biggest surprises. But I'd probably say Brendan Rice and Justin Dedich kind of 1A, 1B for me.
Now, if we're talking about draft surprises, this is a non-USC surprise, and Pete wanted to know, Falcons getting shade for Michael Pennick's pick. Cousins' quote-unquote feelings are hurt. Really? Cousins is a pro. Do you think his feelings are hurt? Is it a truism? If you have two QBs, you have none.
Yeah, this is. I'm glad you brought this up, Pete, because this is again not USC related, but Pennick's Pac-12 last year, so we talk about it a little bit, but. Yeah, that was a big surprise for me. And I got a couple talking points on this. I won't be too long, but very surprising that happened, right? And I want to start off by saying not surprised that Pennick went in the first round. I think he was getting overlooked a lot by these mock drafts, by these scouts saying he was a second, third round pick. I thought he was absolutely one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. I know there were some worries about his injuries and stuff like that, but I really believed he was a top 3, top 4 quarterback in this draft and deserved to be a first round pick. It's just unfortunate that he went to the Falcons because that's a huge head scratcher. It really is, because you just signed Kirk Cousins to a 4-year deal, right? You signed him to a big contract to come in, and you have a good roster. You have Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, Drake London. You have a good roster around him. You have some very good defensive players as well, and you almost have a win-now roster like we talked about with the Bears, a team that can compete right away. You were just a quarterback away, right? And they had a kind of a musical chair situation last year at quarterback. You signed Kirk Cousins to come in and make an immediate impact. You would think with their first-round pick, especially picking so high, that they would pick a real need for them, that they would pick somewhere that would help them right away, right? That's why it was a head-scratcher. And it's unfortunate for Michael Penix Jr. that he's getting some of the hate that he is, because if that was even J.J. McCarthy, if it was Bo Nix, if it was even Drake May or someone fell to that spot, it would still be a head-scratcher, right? So I want to clarify that I'm not surprised Penix went so early, and I don't think a lot of people are. I think they're just confused that the Falcons are the team that picked him. Now, the part that I'll add on to that to where I guess a little bit of the confusion for Pennick comes in is he's not one of these younger guys, right? He's a fifth-year guy. He's 23, so he's an older player in coming out of college, going to the NFL type terms. If Kirk Cousins goes out and plays well, say they win a Super Bowl, say they do great, say he plays well, they're close, they go to the playoffs, and he fulfills those 4 years for the contract, Pennick Jr. isn't going to step foot on the field until he's 27, almost 28 years old, right? So he's not a Sam Darnold situation, right, where you get drafted at 20 or 21. You're one of these younger guys to where you have time to develop. You're maybe a 3-year player. You didn't have a ton of experience. Pennick has a ton of playing experience. So it surprised me that they took Pennick in that pick because they're fully expecting, obviously, Kirk Cousins to play for the next 4 years. That's why they signed him. Is it an insurance pick? I wouldn't say that's the case because Cousins is a proven player in the NFL. Now he's on the later part of his career, so maybe it may not pan out. So you do have a quarterback to develop and be ready to go. But the biggest thing for me that what Pete's saying in that last part is if you have two, you have none. I think the conflict that it's going to create is if Kirk goes out and has maybe 1 or 2 bad games, that's going to immediately take the confidence from Kirk. It's going to take it to everyone on Twitter, put Pennick in, put Pennick in, put Pennick in. We've lost 2 in a row. Take Kirk out, get him out. Like, you get that little bit of a rift that causes some conflict within the facilities. Now, obviously, they're both, mature adults. They're grown men. They're going to be able to handle it behind closed doors, but it does create that conflict not only within the building but also outside with the fan base. So I am a little confused with that pick. I think a lot of people are, rightfully so. I think they should have maybe picked someone who was going to make an immediate impact, a need for that team that could help them go be competitive right away and help Kirk Cousins. But at the end of the day, I'm not surprised that Pennick went so high. I'm just surprised that he went to the Falcons or that the Falcons made or got a quarterback with that pick.
No, I understand the answer to this question, but I'm kind of being devil's advocate here. I feel like you're usually a big proponent of competition makes you greater. Is this one of those cases where it's just not ideal?
No, this isn't because it's not like they brought in Kirk Cousins and another vet to compete with each other.
Yeah.
You're bringing in Kirk Cousins, who's your starter, and you're also bringing in a guy who's never stepped foot on an NFL field yet. So there's really not a competition level to push him. Now, we've seen stories like Russell Wilson, right, where you have they got Matt Flynn a while back, and they just signed him as a vet. They drafted Russell Wilson in the 3rd round, though. That wasn't a top 10 pick.
Yes, fair.
At 8 overall. But you do have opportunities where a rookie can take over a vet who's supposedly going to be the starter. But at the end of the day, I really – and I think what he's saying about Kirk Cousins being frustrated was – and these are stories. Obviously, we don't know the truth fully, but supposedly they told Kirk Cousins, hey, we're going to take a quarterback at some point in this draft. He just didn't know until the pick was made or right before the pick was made when they were on the clock that they were drafting him that early or drafting a quarterback at the number or at their 1st round pick. And I would have been frustrated too if I'm Kirk Cousins, right? I would have been – now it's not going to say bring Cousins in or they bring Pennick in and Cousins going to be cold to him and, hey, I'm not going to help you. I'm not – I don't think he's going to do that. Kirk Cousins is a great guy. One of my favorite personalities in the NFL. That quarterback series on Netflix was awesome. That really got to, kind of show who he is off the field. And I love the guy. I think he's a great player. But it's a weird situation, right? It's such a head-scratching situation that, and it wasn't like, even if it was like a later round pick, right? Like if it was maybe, or a later in the draft, if they went and had a 25th overall pick or a 26th overall pick, later in the draft, that's a top 10 NFL draft pick. There's so many guys that can come in and make an immediate impact right away that you need when you're so close to being a win-now football team. I just didn't fully get it, right? But again, no knock on Michael Pennick Jr. I think he's going to be very successful. It was just a very, very weird situation that they did that, and I'm obviously Kirk Cousins has every right to be a little frustrated with it.
Now, I'm glad IGCWD asked this next question because we didn't mention it, but it broke, I believe, a week and a half ago. Some new rules were added for the college game. First up, in-helmet communication, sideline tablets, and a 2-minute warning now in college. So
communications approved? No,
yes.
I didn't see it.
Yes,
I knew in the spring game we were trying it out and they didn't approve it yet.
No, it has been approved.
Wow. That is going. So is there a question?
Sorry, it was basically what are your thoughts about in-helmet communication as someone who's used it?
Yeah, that's unbelievable. That's crazy. It's gonna be interesting to see who uses it. How I think it's gonna work at the college levels. I still think a lot of teams, especially those fast-paced offenses, are going to be, hey, here's our signal, line up, go, or they can have a one word, hey, or tell the quarterback what it is, and then he can signal everybody else. But the best part is that doesn't cut off till the 15-second mark in the play clock. So the quicker you can get lined up, you can do those ghost-type plays, And instead of having to look to the sideline, Link can just say, hey, check to this, 42 zone or whatever you want to call it, or
Sure.
check to this, and he can go right away. Instead of having to look to the sideline, get the call, signal everybody, hit Miller in the ear, hit Maava in the ear real quick before the 15-second cutoff goes, and then you go from there. Now, I don't know if we're going to huddle like we saw in the spring game or a little bit throughout spring ball. I think it's still going to be fast-paced, but this is crazy. It's going to be insane to see how that changes the dynamic of offenses, especially those fast, up-tempo type offenses around the country. And also the tablets on the sideline, not a huge advantage. It's nice to have, though, instead of a coach having to draw a whiteboard of what you're looking at, now you can look at. Now, the tablets on the sideline, just so you know, are not video. It's just still shots, right? So you see as the ball snapped or pre-snap, and then you see, I think, a second or two post-snap are the two angles that you get. You don't get a full video of, hey, let me watch film on the sideline, what they're doing. It's literally a freeze frame, a back view and a side view of pre-snap, and then a back view and a side view of like 1 to 2 seconds into the play. So it's not, again, a full video, but a game changer, again, for these fast-paced offenses, 2-minute warning. That's going to be insane as well. So, I mean, I like it. It's making the game more like the NFL. So, I mean, it's preparing guys for the next level. I don't think it's too big of a difference to where people are going to be upset about it.
Yeah.
But it's going to be interesting to see the dynamics and how it works.
How long of an adjustment does it take to get used to that? Because I feel like that must be a little weird.
Yeah, it's definitely different. Just when you're because high school, they do more signals now. When I was in high school, you run to the sideline. Coach tells you to play, then you run out to the field, right? Then you get to college, a lot more signals. When I was here with Kiffin, we would kind of go halfway from sideline to the huddle, get the signal, and then go to the play. And we had wristbands, but yeah, it was weird. When I got to the NFL, if you're not used to it, and I think we used it in Mobile at the Senior Bowl when I played, but I can't remember exactly, but I remember my first rookie minicamp practice, getting the helmet, the green dot on it, the earpiece is on the side, and just so you know, for people who don't, it's not a two-way communication, right? It's just you only have an earpiece. You can't. There's no microphone. You can't speak back and have a conversation. Only the coach can talk, and he gives you the information or the play call in your ear. But yeah, it's going to be a weird adjustment. But I think that wasn't too bad, right? Like you get used to it the first couple of times. It's a little surprising, but then you get it. The worst though is playing in loud environments and you don't have signals. And you're trying to cover your ears and block and hear it, and it's muffled a little bit, especially away.
Oh, goodness.
It's very loud, and it's tough to hear. It's going to be weird playing against Michigan if we only rely on a headset when it's that loud, when it's third down, and you're trying to get the play call. That's why you always see guys in the NFL cover both their ears and try
so funny
because they're just trying to hear the coach.
But it looks like a little kid, like being like, it's too loud in here.
Some guys now have where they block it out, to where they have like soundproof. I think they cover the earpiece
or
the holes in their ear. Yeah, they cover that. But yeah, and then sometimes it doesn't work. I've been in a game where I've had to switch helmets 3 times. I think my rookie year I was starting at Washington, and it kept cutting out, and we had to keep switching my helmets because the communication was going on. They have backup helmets for you. So I had to call plays as a rookie, my second start, because we didn't have it. So there are some flaws with that. Yeah. I think signaling's a little bit more of a surefire way, but yeah, I'm intrigued to see how it's going to work. I can't wait to watch, the first couple of games and watch different teams and us, specifically, but see how they're going to use them and see how they incorporate that into their play calling.
Now, we got many questions about bringing Reggie Bush back, celebrating him. Joe and Ron wanted to know, do we know anything about his future return to USC? No, we don't know at the moment.
Yeah, not yet.
Cameron wanted to know, what's the ideal celebration in your mind to have his Heisman back at the Coliseum?
Having him lead the team out of the tunnel. Our first big kind of home game where I think it's going to be sold out. I mean, and no offense to, I think Utah State's our first home game after LSU, so don't know how packed it's going to be, especially early on in the season, but I think like a big time home game, I think Penn State would be amazing to have Reggie Bush running out of the tunnel. Can you just imagine the atmosphere, holding the Trojan sword?
Oh my gosh.
Maybe even having the Heisman in one hand. No, I'm just kidding. But holding the Trojan sword with the mic in his hand, doing the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 countdown, getting everybody hyped up. That place would be, you wouldn't be able to hear a thing, right? It would be chaotic. You would love that. A Big Ten game too, a huge conference opponent in Penn State. So that would be my ideal. But before that, there's got to be a way that we get the jersey hung up as well in the Coliseum, or how they have all the jerseys down there in the end zone.
They're now banners.
Banners is what they're called? Okay, so the banners down there with the jersey numbers of the Heisman Trophy winners and the retired numbers. But so there's probably got to be something that happens before that. But his actual appearance in person that would be mine. Where the lights cut out like we do now.
Absurd.
It goes pitch black. Reggie Bush, all you can hear is his voice on the mic with the sword, and he's leading the team out of the tunnel against Penn State in a night game.
Oh my gosh.
Chills.
Well, when he was at USC for the Big Fox, the Big Noon, I don't think it was Big Noon kickoff, but they had some Fox set at the Coliseum for that Utah game.
Okay.
Electric.
Oh,
and
I
he
bet.
wasn't even doing anything like quote unquote USC related, if you will, let alone you're back and we're recognizing your Heisman.
I can't wait.
Goodness.
Yeah, it's going to be unbelievable.
The interesting thing, though, and Joe points this out in his question, he said, if you had to pick, would you have a joint ceremony for Reggie and Caleb or each have their own ceremony celebrating Heismans? I would go separate.
Yeah, I'd go separate also.
Yeah.
Just because of it's not like it was back to back, right? Where Caleb won
It's
and
two
then another
separate
teammate
eras,
won.
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And just the importance and I guess the anticipation of Reggie's Heisman for how long it's been, you would have to do them separate. But if you ask them, I'm sure both of them being team guys, they wouldn't mind doing it at the same time. But just for the importance of it, I would absolutely love to see Caleb's first and then Reggie do his later.
Yeah, just have each one have their own moment. Like,
yeah, exactly.
They're such great individual accomplishments that just like there's no reason to rush it.
No,
you know what
absolutely.
I mean?
I
After
agree.
all this time.
I agree with that.
We got a question from East Los Buddy who said, when are we getting holograms with all the jerseys being hung up around here? And he in the tweet had a gif of the Tupac hologram.
At Coachella a couple years ago.
Yeah. So
I mean, with AI nowadays, it's kind of scary. I wouldn't be surprised, but no, you got to keep the tradition there. Well, they're not jerseys, they're banners now, I guess is what they're called.
Yes.
They did change them this year, didn't they?
Yeah,
I feel like I noticed that now.
Yes.
They look a little different.
They're not jerseys. And it's actually the whole thing was redone. So it's now, they were a little faded, sun faded.
Okay.
So now they're like bright cardinal. So
yeah, I mean, I don't know. We'll probably get there sometime in the future, but I think we stick with the banners for now. But it's going to be interesting to see how things change. This is a whole nother podcast topic, but the AI and
oh my gosh,
all that stuff
I'm
is
not
getting
qualified.
insane. Yeah, the hologram. Oh,
No.
It's pretty scary, but yeah, I'm sticking with the banners for now.
Yes. Okay. Alrighty. Our final question comes from Ed. He says, since the draft just happened, I've been curious what happens once you guys get drafted. Can you give us your experience on what it was like the first thing you did? Did you immediately look for a place to live? What's the breakdown between being drafted till rookie minicamp?
Yeah, so for me, and I won't kind of repeat everything, but again, it was top round pick, go there and do some media, meet with the team. If you're a later round pick, you kind of talk to them over the phone, and then undrafted guys look for a team to sign with. But after that, so I went there, did all the media, was barely awake. I was so tired. It was just a crazy turnaround. Then I came home and celebrated a little bit. You have like, I think 10 days in between when I got back to rookie minicamp. So I celebrated a little bit, saw friends and family, and was really cool, and had some people come by the house and congratulate me. But after that, it was locked in, right? So you can get your playbook, you can get everything because you're signed with the team, right? Or you're not signed, but you are drafted, right? You know where you're going.
Yeah.
So I got the playbook. I was doing video calls with the offensive coordinator. I was trying to install, because when you get to rookie minicamp, you literally get there, I think, on a Thursday, have a meeting Thursday night, and then you have practice Friday, Saturday, and a half day Sunday. And those are 3 days where you have to make the most out of your opportunities. It's not like you get a whole player ran practices, you get an off season.
You're just
you are
expected
there
to go.
and it's go, right? So for me, it was studying the playbook leading into the rookie mini camp. And some guys don't get that because you sign a little bit later. You don't know where you're going to go. So
Oh, goodness.
it's show up. You've got to learn the playbook on a Thursday night and go practice on Friday morning. Like, it's right to it. Meetings, and then you do sometimes a 2-a-day where it's a walkthrough, not a full go, but a walkthrough practice, lunch, and then the actual practice, and then you have more meetings. So it's a crazy 3 days. It's like a little mini, they call it mini camp, obviously, rookie mini camp, but it's like a little bit of a fall camp type. It's like a 3-day fall camp is the best way to explain it, 2.5 days. But after that, rookie mini camp went well for me. So after that, then you can kind of feel where you're at. Now I was a 3rd-round pick, so I felt comfortable knowing that I was going to stay there. So I tried to find a place as quick as possible, because they put you up in a hotel that they pay for I think a couple weeks, or there's a certain time, and then they tell you, hey, this is, you're only here, you were only going to pay for this for a certain amount of time, then you've got to go find a place. So I immediately was like, I'm finding a place. I went and got an apartment and all that. And Josh McCown was with me in Cleveland, who's a journeyman, who's been all over the place. He said one of the lessons I learned as a rookie is don't buy a house, don't buy a condo, get an apartment. You never know what's going to happen in the NFL. So I always kind of took that to heart. And then you're stuck. If you buy a place and then it doesn't work out, you get traded or whatever may happen, or you could play well and still get traded, right, for draft picks or whatever. So he said, just get an apartment. But yeah, I kind of looked into that pretty quickly. And other than that, I had no big purchases. I think I bought a truck was the only thing I bought.
Okay.
Was like a big purchase, but I hadn't been using a truck since high school, so it was time.
Okay.
And my old truck was on its last leg. But other than that, I didn't have any big purchases, didn't do anything crazy. I was just locked in football mode. And you know how I get when we talk football or I watch, study and do all that or do prep. But I was in full football mode until the off season. Yeah, so it's a crazy turnaround. You do get, after rookie minicamp, you go if you're a tryout guy and you make the team, or if you're a drafted guy, you go straight into OTA. So it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday or Friday, Saturday, Sundays rookie minicamp. The next Monday, if you make the team or you're on the roster, you're in meetings with the older guys. You're immediately incorporated into OTAs, and they're practicing. So you're right into it. You're on the field. I'll never forget being in rookie minicamp with the young guys, and then the following Monday, I'm in a huddle with Joe Thomas at left tackle. So it's insane. It's a crazy film. RG3 and Josh McCown or other quarterbacks helped me out. So It's a crazy turnaround, but it's such a blessing. And again, I'm so excited for these guys, the drafted, undrafted, whatever it may be, guys that are going to bounce around. You never know what's going to happen in the NFL, but I'm so excited for these guys to go out and make the most out of opportunities. And obviously, us here at the Victory Podcast and all the Trojan family are going to be supporting them through their journey.
100%. I mean, that was a great mini wrap up there, but that's all I have for this episode for questions.
Good. That was quick. That wasn't,
We were pretty efficient.
Yeah, it wasn't too long. I think we were under 2 hours.
Yes.
Obviously the final edit's a little bit less, but that was pretty good.
Very proud of us. Well done. You didn't jinx us.
I didn't need to knock on wood. We were good.
Yeah, well, I can't wrap it up until you do your wrap up, sir. So
thank you guys. This was a fun episode. Again, we've got a lot more off-season episodes, as much as we can, much as we can talk about.
I will say, PSA, not soon, but I will be taking a 3-week vacation.
Hey, much deserved.
Yes.
You've been all over the place.
I have been banking up my vacation unintentionally.
Maybe I'll do a solo pod. just run it by myself. I'll ask a question, run to the other chair, and then answer it.
But I believe in you.
No, either way, excited to be back. We've got 3 weeks in a row now after we were kind of off for 2 months. So love doing these episodes. Love getting all the questions from you guys. Stay tuned for some more coming up in the future. And then Trojan football is right around the corner.
So crazy.
It's so close.
So fast.
I can't wait for that LSU game. It's going to be
oh my gosh,
insane, a couple months away. But we'll keep you updated with anything else that happens from now until then. With that being said, love you guys. Fight on. I'm done.
Alrighty, that's going to wrap it up. You heard the man. Thanks so much for listening to this episode. That's Cody. I'm Keely. We'll see y'all next time.